peeling off them old brick signs. Folks work hard, keep their heads down, trying to hold on to better times. Used to leave your door unlocked at night. Now everybody's got a camera on. Still got faith if we get it right, we can fix what's gone wrong. Ain't about talk, ain't about show. It's about the way we live, the way we know. Let's get back to dirt roads, back to porch lights. Neighbors standing up when it ain't polite. Cold beer, hot true styles up above. A little less noise and a whole lot of love. Red, white, blue ain't a trend we chase. It's sweat on your shirt and calloused hands grace. If we're gonna stand, we don't stand apart. We gotta get back.
Welcome into a special edition of Apex News Above the Noise. I am Kyle Thompson.
And I'm Craig Blanton, turning down my audio.
Turn that phone off like you normally do as well.
I do, the
Craig,
phone is off.
Craig, tonight we're doing something a little different and a lot of fun. We have got a guest in the chair with us tonight who's one of the most accomplished people in the Commonwealth of Kentucky when it comes to high school athletics, high school education, and community impact. He is the newly named principal of Franklin County High School here in Frankfort. He is the former head girls basketball coach at Franklin County here in Frankfort, and he compiled a career record of 538 coaching wins as the all-time wins leader in the 11th region. He was the offensive coordinator and the offensive coordinating mind behind the Franklin County Flyers program that had become one of the most consistently excellent programs in the state, including 2 back-to-back state championship game appearances. We are joined, of course, by the one and only, the legend, Joey Thacker. Welcome to the show, Joey.
Thanks, Kyle. Appreciate y'all having me.
Well, before we get into tonight's show, Joey, if you guys are joining us for the first time, I know that some of you are seeing us on X for the first time and other Facebook and even on TikTok tonight. Welcome into Apex News Above the Noise. We built this show because we believe that you deserve real conversation and real news without spin. If tonight's interview gives you, something to talk about or something that you want to describe, please hit that subscribe button right now. Join us and follow us on all the other platforms as well. Give the video a like and make sure you click that notification bell. Well, let's start off with the basketball side of Joey Thacker that defined you for a number of years, sir, because 538 wins is not a number that needs much decoration. You're 12th all-time in the KHSAA girls basketball coaching wins column. You're the all-time record you hold the all-time record in the 11th region, the toughest region in high school sports, bar none. 7 trips to the Sweet 16 in 10 years. Joey, for anybody listening who doesn't follow Kentucky high school basketball closely, the Sweet 16 in this state is not a participation trophy by any stretch. It is the destination every program in the Commonwealth is trying to reach every single year, and you took Franklin County there multiple times. Walk us through what building that program looked like in your mind and what it actually took to sustain the level of success you've had over the years.
Well, I think first and foremost, we had great continuity with the middle school. I was allowed to be involved over there by all the middle school principals. I was allowed to have some influence on coaching hires and involvement of people that I felt like could help us bring some continuity over there when I first got here. It took us 4 or 5 years to really get it off the ground. But I feel like that and the fact that most of those guys or gals that I hired to coach at Elkhorn Middle School also helped me at the high school. So we had those kids from the time they were in 5th grade all the way through. We could take a 5th grader out of class at Peaks Mill and they could run the same play that we could take a junior out of high school World Civ class and, talk to them in the hallway. So I think it started there, and then it helps that you have some pretty good players along the way. That doesn't hurt.
No, it doesn't hurt. 538 wins, though, Coach. It's not a number you accumulate by accident. That is decades of early mornings, late nights, film sessions, and player development. When you look back across that part of your professional career, what are you most proud of? Is it the wins? Is it the Sweet 16s? Or is it something entirely else that people don't see every day?
Well, I had 3 daughters that played almost consecutive years, really, since about 2011, 2012. So a lot of those families, we went to PTA meetings with, or we went chaperone 4-H camp together, so, those kids had eaten off our table. They jumped on our trampoline. They'd spent the night. They'd been on vacation with us, or our daughters had gone with them. So I think that relationship piece is the most special part years later. And we have a bunch of kids that are doing some pretty fantastic things, once they left Franklin County High School, and it's fun to keep up with that too.
Well, talking about that, Coach, over 7 Sweet 16 runs and 7, I mean, that's pretty darn amazing. And a career that spanned hundreds of games. You coached a lot of young women, just like you said, through some of the most formative years of their lives. What does a coach at that level actually teach? And how much of what you gave those young ladies was basketball versus life in general?
Well, I think the first thing I would say to that is I hope they got to be around a pretty good father and husband. That example in 2026, when sometimes we have the breakdown of the American family that's occurred, historically. I think having the opportunity to be a role model, but also have some people to help me that were pretty good humans as well. So I think, during those years, you're developing a mindset, of standards and expectations and what that should look like, not from a basketball standpoint, but from a life, standpoint as well.
Yeah.
Coach, you stepped away from coaching girls basketball. Essentially, the height. I mean, you were still going to the Sweet 16. You still had some great athletes in the program. Most coaches who build what you built stay in that chair. And we talked about the fact that you think you sat in the same chair for over 8 years, the exact same chair.
Physical chair. Yeah.
And most of the coaches, they'll stay there until they're carried out the door. What drove the decision to make that transition? And we know that you kept coaching the football team as well, but what were you looking at on the other side of it?
Well, Matasha had some health stuff going on at that time, and we didn't really know what the future looked like with that. And, we're thankful that she's doing really, really well. But I also think it's just somebody else's turn sometimes. And, I've coached against coaches that stayed too long, and
Correct.
They were run out the door at the end, and what they had accomplished for so many years turned into being pretty trivial in other people's minds. And I also think, all 3 of our girls had graduated. That was Kelsey's senior year when I got out, living in 3 different towns, doing 3 different things. Somebody's windshield wipers are going to break, or somebody wants to go to the movies or something like that. And when I had spent so much time helping raise everybody else's kids, I felt like it was time to, try to be around my own a little bit.
That's absolutely fair.
Well, Coach, one thing I've learned recently, in just like the last couple of years, I got to know you, got to know Coach Mack, got to know Coach Eddie James. I know JT Riddle from back in the day when he played with my cousin at Western Hills. But it seems to me all those coaches, like what you said about the family stuff, I know Eddie does it. Coach Mack, when Kyle and I have talked to him several times, he's also said the same thing. Is that an atmosphere that Franklin County pushes all their coach toward, of helping these kids beyond the athletic field?
Well, I think you have to. And the word I always go back to, and I've used it a bunch with our staff since I've taken this principal job, is enhancement. Are we enhancing their experience for 4 years? And our job at the end of the day is to prepare. But our responsibility every day is to enhance their experience. And whether or not it's a brand new cool uniform, or whether or not it's the greatest pep rally you've ever been to, or, we honor our teachers in a way that they've never been honored before, all the kids are paying attention to that. And you can't lie to these kids. You can put up a front sometimes that they see right through. And all of us have tried to be real legitimate and authentic about, how we go about our business. And hopefully they pay attention.
Coach, you you are a great Hall of Fame girls basketball coach. You have a great basketball mind, but a lot of people didn't know this, but you were an integral part of the Franklin County football program for a number of years. The Franklin County football program, for those who don't know, under Coach Eddie James, has become one of the premier programs in Class 4A in the state. Moving to 5A, not this season, but next season. 6 consecutive regional championships, 3 trips to the state title game in 6 years, back-to-back championship game appearances. And at the heart of that success has been an offense that is almost impossible to stop when it's actually clicking. Joey, you're the offensive mind that came up with a lot of these plays that we saw over the last few years. I know Coach Eddie James is the named offensive coordinator and calls those plays, but I know that you have worked heavily with that. How do you describe your role and what you did to set out to build when you first got involved with that program?
Well, when Donnie Walker was hired here as the head coach in 2003, I had been the head football coach at Frankfort High for 4 years prior. And the folks at Frankfort High didn't really think I was a good enough basketball coach to be a boys coach, so I had to come to Franklin County. And so I think it worked out for me pretty good.
I think it ended up working.
Yeah, it sure did.
I got to meet Donnie and learn, and I got to travel the country working for Tony Franklin and, doing some stuff on Hal Mummy's offense. And we would travel to
all-time offense is Hal Mummy.
Yeah, we would be working at Sonoma High School in Glacier Peak, Washington one day, and then we would be putting the same offense in at Canadian High School in Texas the next day, and then we would be at Mepham High School up in Long Island, New York. So if you do that 17 days in a row, you're bound to learn something, sooner or later. But I got to do that. And obviously, when we had Logan Woodside and Ryan Timmons and it really took off here because we had 2 elite talents.
Mm-hmm.
They make you look a lot smarter than you probably are on some plays. And more than anything else, we tried to play really, really fast because that talks the defensive coordinators into always having to play base defense because they don't have time to get their calls in.
Right.
So if they're in a 4-3, you're going to see a 4-3. You're not going to get an outside linebacker blitzing off the edge because, number one, he can't breathe because you snapped it 3 times in 18 seconds.
Yeah.
So all that and the fact that it goes back to, again, the kids bought into what we were selling. So it kind of came the football program at Franklin County is not where it is today if Donnie Walker had not been hired here 23 years ago.
Let me ask you this. Last season's team was pretty remarkable. A lot of people didn't know the offensive juggernaut that it was going to become. You had Knox Barrett, who threw over 3,000 yards, 37 touchdowns. Cohen Taylor, Delano Collins combined for nearly 1,800 receiving yards, 22 touchdowns between them. Jack Oldham ran for over 600 yards. It was an explosive offense by any standard at any level of football. What was the key to what that group did, and what made it so difficult to defend that group?
Well, I think we could stretch the field laterally and vertically with those kids. Cohen was a kid that, he was your money guy on third down when you'd have a first down. He worked tirelessly to put himself in that position all 4 years he was here. I've never been around a kid that tried to hone his craft as much as Cohen did. And I think we're a little better up front than we thought we would be from the year before. And quarterbacks really like it when they don't have to pick themselves up off the ground.
Yeah, right.
It seems to boost their confidence a little bit. And Knox is a kid that, he gives the receiver a chance to make a play almost every time he throws the ball.
He's going to throw it in their circle.
Yeah,
Yes.
He's awesome. He is just fun to watch.
Yeah. And what really helped us is, I think we had some injuries, but we also had some kids that we had to move around in different spots, and they just took it and ran with it.
Yeah,
So
you mentioned
all that and the culture, the culture that's established out there is this is the expectation.
Yeah.
We get off the bus, we try to score 50 points, and we get on the bus and go home. So
you talked about Cohen just real quick before we go on to Craig's next question, but you talk about a kid like Cohen Taylor who undersized by any stretch at any level of football, undersized, and on third down And even in fourth down, a couple of games, I remember Lexington Christian, was a big game. Everybody on the field knew where the ball was going.
Right.
Everybody knew that it was going. I mean,
Yeah, we called it on the broadcast, didn't we, Kyle?
The broadcast, we knew it was going to Cohen Taylor, and Cohen Taylor still would catch the ball, and stretch it out for a touchdown. Not the fastest kid in the world, all these other things, but he is absolutely a baller. Broke his arm, on a game, what ended up being a game-saving play. Looking back on it, and
the dive play,
just an absolute baller. What is it about a Cohen Taylor, and who is that person that we may look at in the fall? Who is going to step up and be that Cohen Taylor?
Well, I think there's several options. I think you have some kids that, again, have waited their turn. And I think they'll move some pieces to the puzzle around a little bit. The sophomore class is pretty talented. They won a couple state championships in middle school, and those kids are pretty versatile. Aaron Jones is the kid that really has to step up and become the playmaker on the outside.
Agreed.
He started at X for us last year and made some great plays as a freshman.
He did.
But the volume of responsibility for him this fall will be enormous compared to what it was.
Well, we went to the state championship last year. Kyle and I were there with Mark Thacker up in one of them suites watching the game, and we ran into Bull County, a juggernaut by any stretch of the imagination.
Right.
They won 4 straight state titles, and they were obviously head and shoulders above everybody else. So there was, no doubt about that. Kyle and I watched them every weekend, as I'm sure most people did. And the final score is 34-0. How did you process that game as a coach? And what did you take away from that heading into this season, even though you're not going to be there?
Right.
I'm sure y'all discussed it or thought about it every darn day for 2 months after the championship game.
I thought on the offensive and defensive lines, we were physically mauled. You
did have some collegiate players, some guys who
were huge.
Oh yeah. Yeah, you get down there with Seneca Driver and you see these kids listed at 6'7" on the roster, and you think there's no way. And then you get down there next to him and you're like, he may be 6'8".
Yeah.
You had that little water bug guy running those little 3 and 4 yard plays.
Right. Yeah. But I think on the offensive and defensive lines, it has to get better if you're ever going to get to that point. And I think Coach James knows that. I think the kids know that. And, that's what January through June is for. And they've been putting the work in. But if we're going to get over that hump, we have to be able to reset the line of scrimmage on both sides of the ball.
Yeah, they need to eat more pizza, I think.
Yeah, there you go. There you go.
Kyle, did you hear that? You didn't even smile. Are you froze? Kyle might be froze up here.
Yeah.
Well, let's see. So I'll move on to the next till he gets rebooted. You still got me. There he is. Did you hear my joke, Kyle?
I could hear you all. I don't.
Yeah, I said I didn't even get a smile out of Kyle.
Oh, no, yeah. This portion of the program is brought to you by Da Vinci's Pizza. Yeah. 6 straight regional titles, Coach. 2 straight title game appearances. At some point, the conversation has to shift, though, from can we get there to why haven't we won one yet? And I've said this to Eddie, and Eddie knows this. How do you manage that expectation with a high school football team? It's easy to have a drop-off, right? It's easy to have a drop-off once you reach that level and you haven't won, especially with young people who may feel that weight. What do you feel in that situation?
Well, I think you've got to get it. I think you got to get back there. And I think in every game that we've been in the state championship game in football, something has happened early or at least in the first half that was sort of a fluke that affected the rest of the game. You go back to the Paducah-Tillman game 2 years ago. You go out to kick a field goal with a kicker that is more than automatic.
Money.
And the whole operation breaks down, and they go right down and score and go up 10 points. And last year, the fake field goal right before halftime, as bad as we played offensively, if you go down at halftime down 7-0, you feel pretty good about where you are as bad as you've played.
Right.
So I think you got to get back there. And I think in one of those games, and it's going to happen, you have something go really good quickly. Somebody returns a kick or somebody gets a pick six. That stuff hasn't happened yet. That stuff happened in those first 2 or 3 state championships that Boyle County has won, of the bukus of ones that they've won.
Right.
So, left foot, right foot, breathe right now. That's all you can do, and try to get back to get another shot at it.
Well, let me ask this. Being a small business owner, as Kyle and I both are, what can the community do to help push Franklin County over the top? What support do they need? Are there players? I saw some stuff on Facebook, and Kyle and I helped out some players last year. What is something that Frankfort and Franklin County can do to step up and help the football team?
Well, in the end, this all comes down to fundraising. We were talking before we went on air. I can remember Franklin County's football field being so poor to play on that we had to go get bags of Diamond Dry to dry the field for senior night. And now look what's out there. And that, that Mr. Kopp has done a great job of investing in that stuff. But as time goes on, there's going to be something else. Is there one of these computer programs for sports performance that our programs need to actually, so the kids could, they're all visual. All right. So they've got to see that this is my efficiency rating on these 4 drills, that a coach just says, well, you're loafing. Well, that's one thing. But when you see that up on a screen and you see that compared with 10 kids that are at Boyle County, you'll change your tune a little bit about your performance. Yeah. And the data doesn't lie, and then, always looking for money for uniforms and spirit packs and all that kind of stuff.
See that right there?
There you
see
go.
That? I love it. I love that.
Yeah, I like that. Yeah. But I just I think it's a culmination moving forward to see what's next, because the landscape has changed so much.
Well, if a suggestion, because I get hit up, and I'm sure Kyle does too, for all the signs going around the stadium. They're real expensive, and a lot of times you'll see, well, they're not real expensive, but a lot of times you'll see stores that you think would kick up, but they won't because they're having a bad quarter or something. Would it be better to lower the prices and have more signs so that the fans can see that the small businesses of Frankfort and Franklin County are supporting the baseball, the football team, the basketball team? Because I've been hit with some pretty stuff. I like supporting the teams. I think the Village probably supports more than any other restaurant in town, but sometimes the prices are a little bit too high, and I try to get the quarterback club or the baseball club to lower the prices a little bit to make the money in a volume purchase versus 10 or 12.
Right. Yeah, I think it's a fair question. I just don't know what they're basing that on. Football's more expensive. It's more expensive than anything else, and right now it's about $500 to $600 just to outfit a kid to put them in helmets, shoulder pads.
If we hung, instead of what we got there now, what's been there the last couple of years, if we could triple that, lower the price and triple the number of signs, that'll be a look just for the other team seeing it. Says, Lord, this town supports this team great.
Well, and I think the next big investment is we're probably looking at a new scoreboard and things of that nature. I mean, I know that's Eddie's dream wish list. I don't think it's
$120 grand in it, Kyle.
Yeah, it's something up there like that. But then you could have innumerable amounts of ads running and things like that. Let's talk about the new chapter in your life, Joey, because it's probably the most important right now in your career. This is the one that changes everything. You were announced in May as the next principal of Franklin County High School, effective July 1st. You're already there. Superintendent Mark Kopp said, and I want to read this exactly, quote, "He embodies what it means to be a student-centered leader, and he will work tirelessly to ensure that every student succeeds," end quote. And you said you were humbled and honored to take the role. Joey, what does it actually mean to you personally to be the principal of the school where you have poured so much of your professional life into?
Well, it's like I told our staff, this place has been my family's living room for 25 years, because I didn't have time to go home and eat dinner. So they came to me, so these hallways, these adults, these kids, they've all been a part of our lives for, almost 30 years. And I go back to the whole thing of, it's an honor, but it's also the greatest responsibility that a principal has is to enhance everybody's experience. And we have great kids and we have great teachers, but we're so close academically, like we are in football in some way, to really, like, I think we were ranked 7th out of the 55 schools that are in the CKEC last year. We've really challenged our kids to step up their game on state testing, stuff
And
like
they did
that.
this last year. They major improvements.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. We went from 34th to
That's
7th.
amazing.
It's massive.
So, yeah. So we want to continue to build on that. And, you know, just to be able to be a part of these kids' lives every day, because they're all different and they all get from point A to point B eventually in different ways. But being able to be around them and develop relationships with them and be there for them if they need anything, it's just it's a pretty cool job to have.
Well, speaking of that job, you've actually worn more hats at Franklin County than probably anyone in the building's history. You were the girls' basketball coach. You were assistant football coach. You were something called credit recovery coordinator at some point.
Yeah, during COVID, I was managing about 500 online accounts during COVID.
You were the assistant principal. You were the yearbook sponsor.
That was a disaster. You should see that yearbook.
For some reason, it was all watercolors. I don't know what's going on.
Right. Yeah. There you go.
It's a career's worth of different windows, though, into the same institution. What does all of that experience for you give you as you walk in as principal on July 1st? And what do you see that someone coming in from the outside could not see for when you're talking about Franklin County High School?
Well, I think I know what we're good at, and I think I know what we're not. And I've had 3 kids graduate from here. So, you know, from a parental perspective and an employee perspective, I think I can look at it from 2 different hats. You know, one of the things I promised the committee when I interviewed is that we would over communicate and we would over celebrate, because if you can't do either of those 2 things in 2026, then we're being lazy. We have so much to celebrate at 1100 East Main, and we have so many avenues to get it out there to people, you know. And then same way from communication standpoint and a celebration standpoint, if you don't want to do that in 2026, it just means you're lazy.
That's what we're doing, but with Apex Media and Apex News now.
That's right. There you go.
Got to do it different.
So I remember my high school principal was Robert Hoagland. I'm 67.
He was mine too, Craig. Believe it or not.
He? Okay.
Yeah, for at least
because I'm 67 now, so that was 50 years ago. You know, 1977. So you all do make an impression upon young people's lives. So with that, the principal's office, it's a different kind of pressure than on the sideline or the locker room. You know, you're responsible for the academic, as we just talked about, and the personal development of every single student in that building, not just the ones on the.
I think he froze up now.
We're both froze up.
There you are.
Hey, it's lightning. It's lightning out here by my house.
Oh, okay. It's getting darker over here on the east side too.
I'm out here in Huntington Woods. I've had several ones. So let me go back about halfway through while Kyle comes back on. This lightning gets us every now and then. How do you think about the responsibility as you step into that role, and what do you want the students of Franklin County to know about who their new principal is and will be for the next several years?
Well, the most important thing is that I provide an environment, or we provide an environment that they want to be in every day. You know, there's a lot of pressure on teenagers in 2026, be it social media, be it parental expectations, be it State Department changes from KDE all the way down to the classroom. You know, there's a stigma of maybe a little lack of trust between the public and public educators. So I think more than anything else is to create an environment that they want to be in and that they want to get involved. We tell them every year in freshman orientation, find some stuff and get involved.
So y'all have freshman orientation like they do in college?
We do.
So older juniors and seniors, I guess, take the ninth graders around?
Yeah,
I
we
didn't
had
know that. I didn't know
we
that.
divide them up into groups, and they tour the building, and then we give our spills, administrators, and meet with counselors, all that kind of stuff. But we do this year. I think it's August the 6th. We will do it. Freshman
Okay, I didn't
orientation.
know that, but my kids went to Western Hills. One more little quick one. When my
Okay.
children went to Western Hills, we attended every PTO or PTA meeting, whatever it was. There were very few parents at those meetings. How is it
Mhm.
today? That was 12, 13 years ago. How is it today with parent participation in the classroom?
It's not a lot better. I think it's twofold with that. I think you have some parents that fully trust that we're going to do right by their kid and we're going to educate their kid, and their kid has to really take a lot of that responsibility and load on their own. And then I think part of that is there's a lot of things that a lot of people are doing in the evenings that have nothing to do with working the concession stand.
Yeah,
And some of these parents, they may be working 2 and 3 jobs
right.
that we don't
Hey,
know
I
that
was
story.
back then, but
Yeah.
Kyle, it's lightning out here at my house, so that's why I think I'm freezing up. I've had,
Oh, I'm having the same issues, but we'll keep going. We'll
yeah,
get
keep
through this.
pushing.
Franklin County High School, Joey, sits in the capital city of the Commonwealth. There is something very meaningful about that, and there's a little bit of pressure as well. What do you want the next chapter of our school to look like under your leadership, and how are you going to measure success? And what does that look like in the principal's office? Is it the same as when you were at the Sweet 16 or in a state football championship? Because there are things that carry over from the field, but what do you see the future of success at Franklin County looking like?
Well, I want to place a pretty big emphasis on making our master schedule and our curriculum look more like 21st century stuff. I think we've got to get with it a little bit when it comes to what we're offering these kids to take from a class perspective in order to prepare them to go out into the world that's moving 1,000 miles an hour all the time. And when we develop those things, there won't be a ton of curricular changes this year. All that was sort of done. But, when we develop those things, are we sending our teachers off for 2 days to sit in a chemistry lab at UK and see what our kids need that want to pursue medical school or pursue something from a microbiological standpoint? So I think, and I use a coaching comparison. When our 1-2-2 zone wasn't very good, I went to E-Town High School and watched practice because theirs was.
Right.
So I think sometimes in education we get so regimented in the same old
Fair.
that we're afraid to go somewhere and visit, ask questions, and do the kinds of things that it's going to take to grow a little bit more along the way.
We have a question from the audience. She also happens to be a school board member, so we won't.
Hey, Jennifer.
I don't know if this is a pop quiz or not, but we'll see how we do here. I have a question for Mr. Thacker. Since you were a history teacher, if you could go back and witness any 2 events, what would they be? One worldwide and one U.S.
Oh, wow. I would say Berlin Wall from a worldwide perspective. And I would say in the U.S., I think I would probably any inauguration. I think I've never gotten to go. When I was teaching at Frankfurt High, I was low on the totem pole, so I didn't get to go on the trip.
Couldn't
But
coach.
I think those 2 things would be pretty cool.
They wouldn't let you coach the team. They wouldn't let you go to the.
Right, there you go. Yeah. Here we are. Right.
So
Well, with you talked about the future of how the world is moving so quickly, especially the United States. AI is going to be driving everything. My son is in the mechanical engineering field at Curtis Mariasu. My son-in-law, he's a biochemical engineer, but he's working for an space aeronautics company in Shelbyville that he's managing a project from SpaceX right now. So with KSU switching to a STEM polytechnic university, Was that what you were addressing with the kids getting more into the AI world? Because in 5 years, this country is going to be completely different than it is today, in my opinion.
Yeah, and it goes in 5-year cycles too, Craig. I mean, from a curriculum standpoint, yes, a little bit with that, but also just like I think our AP numbers are down. You know, I want our kids to be able to do hard stuff, but I also, more importantly, want our kids to be able to know they can take those chances to do hard things. You know, I think we have a problem in American education. It's called grade inflation right now.
Had it when I was there.
And you know, it's important that they understand that I can get a B in a class and learn way more than I can getting an A taking basket weaving.
Right.
You know, because that's only going to help me long term. Those kinds of things. And I think the people that we hire, I think a lot of these younger teachers that we've hired, they're a little more up to date on some of that stuff. I feel like they are very with it when it comes to the AI generation, a lot more than I am.
Yeah, they're using it though, but can they program it? Is what I'm
right. Well, and I think, you know, with our CTC program and stuff like that, I think they're on the cutting edge of that stuff with coding and all this other stuff. I have a friend in Lexington. He taught a bunch of coal miners that were laid off because of the coal struggles in Eastern Kentucky. He started a business called, I think it's called BitSource, and he taught coal miners how to code and really took off with that. So I think there's a lot of options that we've got to explore.
We want to thank Matt Cantrell for his comments. True leadership is all about influence. True success measures impact over authority, and I can't wait to see what impact Coach can make in his new role. Matt, thanks for joining us today. It means a lot that you're here and that you're listening to this conversation. It's an important conversation for the kids on this side of town and those kids who will be going to school in Franklin County. All right, let's turn to some more fun stuff. Let's get into. I know you're not coaching per se. The offense for Franklin County football, but Franklin County football is a big deal around here. Let's turn the corner a little bit. The 2026 team, the seniors are gone. Cohen Taylor, Delano's gone. Jack. It was a remarkable group of football players, a hard class to follow. I even think of Shalom and those kids. What does this team look like coming back, and why do Flyer fans? What do they need to know about what's going to be seen on the field in August?
Well, I think the group that's coming in, the senior group that's coming in, is a group that's sort of waited their turn, and they've worked hard and been patient in doing so. I think from an offensive perspective, they'll have to have a little more balance, I guess, at first. You know, those first 3 or 4 games on the schedule that's coming up this year are not for the faint of heart. And, you know, you think Bullitt East thinks they probably should have beat us last year. LCA probably thinks they should have beat us last year. So you have those factors going into those games. You know, defensively, you lost some pretty good linebackers. You know, Jacob Olds got more out of 5'9", 170 than any kid I've ever been around defensively. Just an absolute warrior. But, you know, Lane Brock's back. The Dunmire kid that will be a sophomore is going to be a very good linebacker. And I would say moving forward, the biggest part about this team that Eddie's going to have back this year is who's going to step up and say it's their team. You know, because you're trying to replace so many seniors that had been around a while. Who's going to take ownership? The pieces of the puzzle are there. Usually takes you about a month to figure that out. But it starts with player ownership.
You have Knox Barrett returning at quarterback, over 3,000 yards, 37 touchdowns. We know that he's being looked at by Division I programs. It's a worst kept secret in America right now. He was the engine of the offense, surprisingly, his freshman year and obviously his second year. What should we expect from him this year? I mean, he's getting into his seniority leadership at this point.
He's a lot bigger. Like, he's gotten taller, which I think helps him in the pocket.
Good to hear.
He was already taller.
Yeah, he's gotten taller. He's been up here quite a bit. He's put a lot of time in June, you know, just throwing to receivers and doing stuff on his own. I think he'll be able to throw the ball down the field a little more. because I think because they'll be so young up front in some spots, I think people will bring more pressure, especially in the box. So I think it is very, what do you call it, explosive worthy to say that he will throw for more yards if he stays healthy, because I think the scheme that people will try to play against him this year will allow him to take more shots. I think people were worried about Lano getting behind him last year, or LD getting behind, a two safety look. I think they'll see more of one safety look. And I think Eddie will roll him out more. He's pretty comfortable doing that. I think it'll only get better. He gets the ball on the edge now of his hand pretty quick.
Remember that one play, Kyle, where he called it?
Check down at the line.
Yeah.
Everyone saw it. Everyone in the field saw it.
Yeah, I mean, that was and I think you talked to Eddie, and he said that was Barrett's call to do that.
Him. He came to the sideline and told him he was going to pull it. We had never worked it, but it worked.
He did. So all right, now my favorite part of the game, of course, like I told you, I loved Hal Mummy's offense, and just pace. I can't get enough of it.
Right.
We got the middle school player of the year coming in. Is that right? Do I remember that correctly?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. And he was just scoring at will.
State middle school player of the year. That's not a regional thing.
Right. Yeah. State. He was a state middle school. And so from a purely, now this is speculation now that you're not coaching. Okay. So from a purely offensive scheme standpoint, do you think what adjustments, if you were still there, would you make to accommodate Knox? You said he's taller. With I don't know the middle school player's name. I can't recall it right now. But
Preston.
Okay, with those guys coming in, that's going to be two big horses that we're going to be able to utilize on offense. What do you think Eddie might do, or just now you're a fan, just speculate on what you do, because that's what Kyle and I do all the time.
Well, I think you got to bring Preston along a little slowly, because I think you have some kids that are older that are sort of used to that grind, especially that early in the year schedule. But he's a football player, and he's an old school football player. He just puts his nose down, goes to work.
Drives through them.
Yeah. And he's gotten a little stronger, a little bigger. I don't know how much bigger he'll get, but what he does very, very well is he's patient. And a lot of young running backs aren't patient. They want to slam it into a brick wall, so to speak. But I think, again, I go back to the word balance. I think they need balance early in the year, because I think it's important that if you win those games against those bigger schools and private schools early in the year, that you sort of got to have an even number of snaps, both offensively and defensively.
So you don't wear them
especially when it's hot.
Yeah, so you don't wear them out.
Right. Especially when it's hot. So I think balance will be key. And I think, we had a pretty good screen game last year with Lano and Cohen and Aaron. I think besides Aaron, they've got to find some people that can run screens to punish the defensive line and the linebackers from blitzing so much. And who those kids are, I don't know. It's yet to be seen.
The regional championship streak for Franklin County is at 6 years. That's hard to believe, by the way.
Regional championship.
Regional championships, yeah. Do you believe this year's team has the pieces to make it 7 straight and push for a third consecutive trip to the state title game? And what has to happen between now and kickoff in late August with this group to have its best chances?
I do think that the possibility of that is there by all means. I think most of these kids have a bad taste in their mouth from what happened against Boral, and they should.
Absolutely.
And I think that'll help. And I also think more than anything else, you got to have a couple ugly ducklings, as I call them, step up and play. And nobody knows who those kids are in June. You might not know till October. But I think whoever those kids are will mean a great deal to the success they have, because somebody's going to get hurt or somebody's going to cramp up, and somebody's got to make a play when nobody else is, expecting that particular kid. So and I'm anxious to see, who. There's a lot of choices, possibilities, but nobody really knows the answer to that question yet.
Well, I'm glad we got to wrap up kind of the high school aspect of this and what it means to you. But this is the part of the show that we get into UK sports. So if you're ready, we'll get right into it.
That's fine. Yeah.
Okay, let's go.
We have the good music for the kids. The kids like that, right? We can't have you on the show, Joey, without talking UK sports. It's
Right.
impossible. You're one of the local experts. Everyone says, "What does Joey think?"
Right.
So because we know you follow both programs closely, we'll start with football. It's the Will Stein era. Year one, Mark Stoops finished 82 and 80 over 13 years and was let go after back-to-back bowl ineligible seasons, ending with 5-7 record last fall. A surprising 5-7 season. Nobody even thought they'd get there. Will Stein comes in from Oregon, one of the most explosive offensive coordinators in the country since those Tony Franklin and Mike Leach days and throwing the ball all over the damn place. He brings in 29 transfer portal players, the 11th ranked, 10th ranked in 24/7 transfer class nationally, according to 24/7. New quarterback in Kenny Minchie, who backed up Riley Leonard and CJ Carr at Notre Dame. Joey is someone who has studied and coached powerful offenses for years. What's your first impression of what you've seen Will Stein do and what he's building at UK?
I think he's really aggressive in everything he does. And I think we got in a spot where we weren't being aggressive in a lot of aspects with that program.
In any aspects.
Right. Or any aspect.
All,
right.
all of them.
I don't think he's afraid to lose. I think he calls every play to score a touchdown. And I think more than anything else, he's a player's coach. He's young enough. He's hip enough, so to speak, to get along with these guys. And I think it's going to work out real well.
Good. I like to hear that already. Craig, I think you had one that.
Yeah. As an offensive football specialist yourself, and my favorite part of the game, what does bringing in a true offensive mind like Will Stein from the high-powered Oregon Duck offense, what's it mean for Kentucky? Because we haven't had this since Hal Mumme. I hate to keep going back to that, but running 3 times up the middle in a cloud of dust or a cloud of asphalt grass,
Right.
Fake grass, it's not exciting football. And college football across the country is exciting, passing, high-octane offense thing. And Kentucky's just not had that in a while.
Right.
So what do you think Will Stein will bring to that part of the fan base that even if they lose 48 to 42,
That's right.
they'll still have enjoyed the game and want to come back to the next game?
Right. Well, I think it goes back to fun identity. I think their identity is shifting back to where it's going to be fun to be there. Most of everything that I've been able to find online or watch, they did the SEC Network did that special, and they've done some behind the. Dan Casey is a friend of mine who runs his Twitter website that I got to meet traveling doing football stuff. He did a little 30-minute deal with Coach Stein. They're just a bunch of good dudes that are trying to make it fun for everybody involved, but at the same time work like dogs in order to accomplish what they need to. And that's a fine line in 2026. I think most of the staff that he has, they all have similar identities about how they had to work themselves up from certain spots in college football.
Mm-hmm.
He didn't have somebody that spent the last 15 years at Alabama.
Right.
He didn't pursue those people either. He went with his gut. He went with a bunch of guys that nobody really knows.
Yep.
That seems to be working in terms of the rapport and relationships they have with their players and that they have with the fans so far.
Speaking of that, we had this question from Dougie, who's a regular for us. Does anybody know how good Callum Wither is? He just committed to UK just a few hours ago. I think he's 23 or 24 years old. He was at Ohio University. He's transferring in. Doesn't have a lot of game experience. What does it mean for a program like Kentucky that they're willing to go out and get a 23 or 24-year-old kid to give him a shot to be a backup, if nothing else, on the practice squad and things like that. But taking chances on kids at that age, knowing that maturity and understanding the game sometimes will overcome potentially some inability from the athletic perspective, if you will.
Well, normally the goats at the bottom of the hill are hungrier than the goats at the top of the hill. So I like it because the whole system is so messed up. Find you some guys. When I was head football coach at Frankfurt, we went to the Coach of the Year clinic back when Earl Browning had it at the Galt House in Louisville. This was like 1999, 2000. And Bob Stoops was the speaker. And he said, the biggest thing I can tell you as a football coach is play some football players, not the guys that look good in a football uniform.
Yeah.
And if you can get you some guys that are not anointed while they're in high school, that have kind of had – now you need both.
You do.
But if you can get you some guys that have paid their dues and it means something to them to be a good teammate and to be a good mentor to the younger guys, you've got to take that chance.
Well, speaking of that, we had last year Kentucky had some guys, get off the bus, looked great, ripped from head to toe. There's a famous picture right before the Louisville game. The Kentucky guys had their shirts off. It's 20 degrees outside. They're looking all ripped, and then you go out there and you lay an egg. So it only means so good getting off the bus, looking so good as well. I think that's impressive. Craig, you had another one you want to ask?
Yeah, something for both of you. Coach, you first. We've seen already this year that UK, it's a just short question, UK has pulled players that we thought were going to Alabama, thought were going to Florida, thought were going to Ohio State.
Mm-hmm.
How do you attribute that? Will Stein hadn't had the first snap in a real game in the SEC. How do you think he's been able to pull those guys from the, top 5 teams in the country?
Well, I think a couple things with that. I think, number one, he's got some street cred because he was at Oregon.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And if you've coached at Oregon and you're involved with Nike, you're on TV.
Yep.
So a lot of these guys know who he is.
Right.
And when you have people like Kenny Minchie, I think, made the comment, here's a kid that left Notre Dame to come play for him. And he was like, this guy and Joe Sloan are the best 2 quarterback coaches in the country. Well, now with social media, these kids are messaging each other all the time.
Right.
Who's the best coach that you've ever been around? Or who's the best coach that developed you the most? Who helped you with your footwork? Who helped you recognize if there was 1 safety deep or 2 safety deep?
Right.
And they'll just message somebody on Twitter, and they're not they don't care a bit to message somebody that's already in the NFL. And those guys aren't doing anything. They're just sitting around watching Netflix. They'll message them right back.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that there's a lot, like coaches, the fraternity of coaches talk in that fraternity quite a bit. Yeah. But with social media, players do too now.
Yeah. Well, Kyle, we've talked about this. So do you want to add to what Coach said or move on?
I'm going to add one other thing. When I was in college and we were cutting up film so coaches could use their cowboy and things like that, and Coach understands what I'm talking about. But now what you have is you have high school and middle school kids watching game film while they're sitting in class. And I know they shouldn't be, but they're watching their game film. It's a real thing. And the funny thing is, the hilarious thing is, because we work with the program, I get to see some of their stuff that they have, and you can see when the kids log in, and we're like, it's 1:00 in the afternoon. Ding dong. Why are you watching your game film? At least you're watching your game film instead of doing something else. But these kids are watching game film at 13, 14 years old and learning how to do that, where that was not available to kids at that age just 10 years ago. And on top of that, and I know this sounds silly, you have kids playing Madden and college football games, and they are learning the ins and outs of how computers have learned to run programs. And while that sounds silly, it helps these kids put in real life what they're able to do. So the football minds and the basketball minds too of younger players is more developed than it was even 10 years ago. And I think those are the two reasons why. You agree, Coach?
I do. I think the exposure and the terminology and stuff is anywhere you want to get it if you truly desire to learn more.
Yeah, a lot different. Well, the transfer class is loaded. Nick Anderson from LSU at wide receiver, C.J. Baxter from Texas, who I believe it may be one of the best running backs we've ever had at Kentucky. Lance Hurd, who may be the best offensive lineman in the country. Tegra Shabola from Ohio State on the offensive line. That's real Power 4 talent coming in. How quickly can a transfer-heavy roster gel in year one? Because you got a bunch of guys who are just going to be here for 1 year. And what does that class tell you about the direction Will Stein wants to take this program right away?
Well, I think to gel, I think it takes about a month in football, regardless who you've got coming back. But I think to gel offensively is different than defensively. I think it's easier to gel offensively with those guys because the right tackle's got one guy to block on this blitz pickup scheme.
Right.
Defensively, how I fit at linebacker with a guard pulling across my face versus a double team coming right at me varies. So I think it can help the offense. I think the defense, if you could keep those guys multiple years, I think your defense gets better. So I think it's different for both sides of the ball. But I also think they have probably 5 or 6 of those kids that Stoops played quite a bit defensively that stayed, that's kind of been through the SEC battles that will help some of those transfers mesh and blend in.
Yeah. He's also recruiting, from the high school ranks at a very high level. This is what rivals in 27 recruiting classes. Right now, UK sitting at 22, 23. I think it varies between everyone you look at.
Depending on who it is, yeah.
Noticeably, U of L is not on this list. So for all of you,
Bummer.
Yeah,
that's a shame.
That like to get into our comments. But we're competing now with big dogs in the top 25 when it comes to incoming classes. That they're not done, by the way. If Travis Fryman commits to the football team and some other things, it's going to bump them up. Tell us what this means when you're not just able to say, I can get these guys, who may be a fifth-year senior that want one more go at it and they'll take a try at Kentucky. You're getting 17 and 18-year-old kids to commit to you to come into, what has not been a good football program over the last few years.
Well, and they're committing pretty quick. Like probably a dozen of those kids he got on the first 2 recruiting weekends they had. So the timeline of it is, if you can sell ice to the Eskimos, you can get some stuff done pretty quick. And I think he's got some guys over there that are connected with some of these high school programs these kids are coming in from. And I think that relationship matters prior to getting there. And then with the new upgrades to the weight room and the indoor and everything else that they've done recently, you combine those factors, I think it's a good selling point. And it still comes down to, do those kids believe that Will Stein, as the head football coach of Kentucky, can enhance their experience while they're there and help them make money someday?
Yeah.
And the track record says he can do that. And until he doesn't, we can't say otherwise.
Well, just do a quick look at that child. Pull that chart back up. Would you ever think UK would be in recruiting football? There's 8 or 9, maybe 10 SEC teams in that top 25. We're now in the mix. That's just an observation, not a question. That's pretty darn cool to see that.
Yep, I agree.
Coach, I'm going to put you right on the spot here. We've got not to say we have the toughest schedule in the country is we're not even joking about that. That's a legit comment. I think everyone would agree that if it's not the toughest, it's one of the toughest. Let's go through this a little bit. Youngstown State, I think, is a win. South Alabama, that's a win. You're probably looking at, potentially another win there at South Carolina. Where's Kentucky going to pick up, and maybe Missouri? Where's Kentucky going to pick up 6 wins in this?
I think Kentucky beats Florida at home. and I think Kentucky beats Vanderbilt at home.
No Diego Pavia anymore. That helps.
But
Yeah,
I think not only that, but I think Vandy had some dudes on the edge, and that tight end I think he ended up getting taken in the first or second round of the draft too.
Right.
But I really believe that if the momentum can get built and the debacle that's happened at Alabama the last 2 years can continue to do that, then I think the second week of the season, it can get real crazy at Kroger Field, and they
Coach,
can have a chance.
We said on here on this show, if they come running out of that tunnel and they got that block K on the side of their helmet,
Power K, yeah,
the power K
right
on the side of the helmet as they go running through the tunnel, and the crowd sees that, Lexington may blow up. I mean,
because there's talk about it. You've seen rumors about it.
Oh yeah, well, I mean, it's the only thing you see on Will Stein. I don't know why he's not wearing it in this particular photo, but it looks like the Power K, that Block K, might be coming back. So it's something to seriously consider.
So what's your win loss record, you two? I'm praying for 7, hoping for 6.
I think 6-6 is fair.
I'm going to say 5 or 6. Okay. You usually win one that you don't expect to win, and then
that's why I was thinking 7.
And
traditionally, Kentucky has lost one that they haven't planned on losing.
Yeah,
either.
But hopefully our offense will eliminate those
last
2-minute losses.
I hope so. Well, let's talk hoops at this point. We saved the best part to the last. This might be the most exciting Kentucky sports conversation of the summer. Mark Pope, year 3 coach. The history is well known. Every one of the 5 previous Kentucky coaches who lasted at least 3 seasons made the Elite 8 by their 3rd year. John Calipari won the national championship in year 3. Pope has missed the Elite 8 in each of his first 2 seasons, including a first round, as a second round exit in March. The measuring stick is right in front of him. Joey, how do you assess Mark Pope's first 2 seasons, and what does year 3 mean for his tenure?
My assessment is still searching for a defensive identity. I think the games they've lost to teams that Kentucky is not supposed to lose to in basketball on the road in the SEC is because of their defense. I don't see a consistent style defensively, and which surprises me because he played for Pitino. And we talk about Pitino being a genius, and he is all we want, but Pitino, his team's guarded, and they guarded well.
That's
regardless how many threes they shot, or what their talent was offensively. I think defensively they got to develop an identity, and I think they've got to stay healthy. I mean, we just don't really know what's going on where all these kids are hurt over there all the time.
Right.
So I don't know if they're, I don't know if they're scrimmaging too much. I don't know if they're going too long. Is it just a freak accident? I know the kid got hurt in the blue-white game. It just happened.
Yeah.
But I feel like more than anything else, he has some shot makers with Wilkins and the kid from Iowa State that just committed.
Yeah.
And I think a couple of those guys, the McBride kid from Furman, I think, James Madison, yeah. I watched the way kids catch the ball and face the basket, and his demeanor when he catches it and faces the basket is, "I'm going to take your soul."
That's great.
And you've got to have some kids like that, because when people play Kentucky, they're going to play the best they've played all year.
It's their Super Bowl.
And you have to match that intensity, and I don't know that we've done that consistently enough the last 2 years.
Let's talk specifically about that roster, because it's genuinely one of the most fascinating in the country. Four legit 7-footers. Malachi Moreno, Frank Kepnong is up there. Reese Potter, Usman Njai, who we confirmed earlier this week, has potentially 2 full seasons of eligibility now, depending upon how these rulings.
That's the rumor.
The projected starting lineup has heights of 6'6", 6'6", 6'9", 7 feet, and 7 feet. That's kind of ridiculous, at least wingspan wise. when you're talking defensively. Momcilovic is 6'8". He's not 7 feet, but that it could be one of the tallest starting fives in the history of college basketball if they decide to move one of these guys in that is not on the starting lineup right now. I don't know why I did that. Mark Pope committed maybe one of the tallest that we have. Mark Pope compared Alex Wilkins to Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. NBA. He compared Justin McBride to Julius Randle. He called Braden Hawthorne's ceiling the highest possible. Milan Momcilovic is a walking bucket with European flair, they said. Joey, as a basketball coach yourself, when you look at what Pope is putting on the floor, and we still know there may be an extra player out there. They may bring in the kid from Serbia, and that may add to this. But when you look at what Pope is putting on the floor, at least with the 14 that we have, what excites you the most?
I think the versatility of it all. I think you can go small with what he has. I think you could bring McBride off the bench and maybe even play him at the 5 some just to get somebody down there in a Charles Barkley kind of bully you around situation. And I think you've got some different ways you can play with your guards. With Hawthorne, you could play him at a 3 and move Cam down to a 2, and that makes you bigger and longer. There's just a big difference for a shooter offensively to have to shoot over a 6'5" wing versus a 6'9" Tayshaun Prince length wing. Sight lines and all that gets jacked up and you don't make as many shots. So as a coach, I always did not like to play little wings as much as I could get away with playing longer kids. We did. And I think Pope's that way. I think that's just the way the game's played now.
Rebecca Cook is a good example of that.
Good example. Condor-ish, as I called her. Right. Yeah.
Miss Kentucky hopeful.
Yeah. Hopeful. Right. Yeah. It's going well, looks like so far. But I think each one of those guys too, though, they have a defined role before the season ever starts. And I don't know that last year's team had that, probably with the exception of Owe.
Well, we were fortunate to get Moreno back, 7-1, and I think going to the combine he did so well there. He learned a lot. They gave him a lot of good tips, like they do every player that goes to the combine.
Mm-hmm.
How do you think what he learned there and what Momcilovic learned there, but Moreno specifically, will add to the team this year, and that those two can pass along to the rest of the roster?
Well, I think in Malachi's situation, I think the ability to figure out that you've got to be able to catch it and turn him face some. Like I know that Pope always runs that little back cut thing from the ball side entry wing where when Amari Williams was there, he'd make that backdoor bounce pass some to a cutter. But I think Moreno has got to learn to turn and face from 15, 18 feet out and be a threat to score, not just to pass. I think he's got to improve on the passing aspect of it. But I also think if he could make 1-3 a game or 2 or 3 mid-range jump shots and then be able to lift people and get off their feet, and then even if he doesn't drive by them, he gets fouled.
Yeah, he doesn't have a 3-point game, though.
Right. And if he's going to be an NBA post that doesn't weigh 300 pounds, he's got to have one.
Yeah, I looked all the players' stats up today, and he's 0%. And I looked back at the official UK stats at UK, and he didn't hit any.
Right.
Coach, the backcourt question is the one people are wrestling with, I think, the most. I think they feel like if they get the ball inside, they could probably score. But Zoom Diallo comes in from Washington, 15.7 points, 4.5 assists, pretty solid numbers per game last season. He's going to replace Denzel Aberdeen, who is going to be part of the lawsuit that was just filed. Called that one the day after they passed that, within minutes.
What's the Aberdeen thing?
So Aberdeen is asking for his for another season to be able to play.
Year. He's wanting a 6th year.
He wants a 6th year, and essentially says that under the 5-and-5 rule, he would qualify under it, but it's not going to count for the guys who are seniors this year. It's a big mess. I knew it was going to be a lawsuit. We said it would. But the big question is, can Diallo run this team at the Kentucky level and be the floor general this program really needs alongside at that front court side?
I think so. I think he is more than capable, and I think he's somebody that's a bit of a bulldog with the ball in his hands. And Pope really hasn't had that, a physical point guard that can get fouled, that can try to bully the other team's guards defensively. I think he's a kid that can score from different areas. I don't think he's a three-point shooter nor a driver. I think he's sort of somewhere in between consistently. Yep. And I think in the open floor, from what I've watched, and I've tried to go back and find some things, he plays like – so this is going to sound crazy, but the volleyball things that they put the volleyball standards in to put the net up, I call those sprinkler heads. I learned that from Bunky Harkleroad 25 years ago. He's now, I think he's still a women's coach at Sacramento State. But he doesn't play outside the sprinkler heads in transition. And in basketball, the hardest thing for me to do defensively is to keep you from driving it straight at my neck. And offensively, the easiest thing for me to do is to drive it straight at your neck. So I feel like he's sort of a little John Wall-ish in terms of playing in straight lines a little more.
That's a big compliment right there.
Well, and not necessarily from a skill perspective, but from the territory that he tries to control while the game's going.
Yeah.
You know, a lot of guards want to try to play laterally before they try to play vertically. And you're just wasting dribbles and you're just wasting time on the shot clock. And we've seen that enough.
Yeah.
You know, this kid,
I've seen you call plenty of timeouts when your guards are standing at the top, just dribbling side to side.
This is not the NBA, right? Yeah.
Yeah. And I checked their 3-point percentage. So Zoom is 32 and Wilkins is 33%. So not we want them around 40.
Right.
Be good, but
right.
I don't care from the practice we've seen and what Coach Pope said after the first week of practice. Those were his 2 MVPs for the first week.
Right.
So that sounds great.
My sources say McBride's the best player in the room, but that's just my source.
We talked about that, that he was just dominating. But did your sources say he was slightly erratic?
I think he's got a little bit of spastic aggressiveness. Maybe that's the best way to term it. I don't know.
Okay.
We've also heard from our folks that Njai is this unicorn that's just a dog, a surprise dog, and
fast and big,
doing crazy things up there that they weren't expecting already.
Yeah, they're long. There's no question.
Yeah. Go ahead, Craig. You had the
okay. Now, hearkening back, because Kyle and I were just going crazy over this, and it drove me nuts when the fans booed at Rupp. I've never seen that before in my entire life. At Rupp or on TV, I've never seen fans go that crazy. And so the criticism of the Pope era has been consistency and march. Great stretches. See, where's my question here? Great stretches, but not enough when it counts. And when we suffered from injuries, that's really limited us. But the roster's the biggest and the most talented he's assembled in size and front court talent to make Kentucky Elite Eight. I projected Elite Eight if we get what's the kid's name? Kyle Nicola. Yeah, we get him. I'm saying Final Four. What do you think, having this big a team? How do you think Coach Pope will adjust to this? If we stay healthy, we've got 2 layers of backups for everybody. We can move around. You, like you said, take Cam from a 3 or a 4 to a 2 and really make us big. What are your thoughts on the size of the team and how Pope will manage them?
Well, I think they'll try to play faster, especially with Wilkins and Diallo there to sort of make the engine go. I think if you think back to the first year Pope was there, they ran a lot of half-court set stuff that was a little Princeton offense-ish.
Backdoor cuts.
last year, I think they tried to do some of that. They were either too young in some spots or just not good enough in some spots.
Mm-hmm.
So they ended up doing a lot of like stagger ball screens away or pick and pop stuff. I think this team will try to score within the first 12 to 14 seconds of the shot clock. I think that will improve their offensive rebound percentage if they'll do that. And as long as they are, they should be a better offensive rebounding team.
Yeah.
Now that $1.50 will get you a cup of coffee over here at the BP station. Still, yeah.
Well, and
So,
yeah, and I'm sure y'all saw the news today that Jaden Quaintance is going to have cleanup surgery. Is what they
no, I
call it.
didn't see that.
Oh yeah, he's
Months.
yeah, he's going to be out potentially up to 6 months off this cleanup surgery.
Oh, wow.
But they said going in, San Antonio knew that when they drafted him. So
we knew that too, but look how it worked for us.
yeah,
Right.
and so I didn't know if y'all had heard that or not. It's just
I did not know that. No.
Yeah, okay.
Well, bottom line, Joey, where does Kentucky basketball finish in the SEC this season, and how far do they go in March?
I think Elite Eight is fair, but I think a lot of that has to do with how they do in the SEC. You can't be in a buzzer beater situation at LSU
No.
and get beat at South Carolina and Auburn and be a 2 or 3 seed.
That's correct.
And, with the parity with NIL, with NCAA basketball, you've got to be a top 2 or 3 seed not to be playing somebody who has the exact same talent as you.
Mm-hmm.
Because somebody's out spending some money to get a kid to transfer from UCLA to,
Michigan.
I don't know, Michigan or BYU or some of these other places.
Hell,
So-
LSU might not be a field team yet.
Right. Yeah. But I think they've lost a bunch of games that they weren't supposed to lose from a notoriety name perspective the last 2 years, especially on the road in the SEC, because whatever we're doing to prepare to play on the road in the SEC needs to be reevaluated. We've still won some games. We went into Arkansas and owned them.
Dominated. Yeah.
But, you had a little extra incentive in that game because we felt like that we just laid down the year before. But I think the SEC will always be tough. I said, I think attrition sets in after so long. The beating and the banging in the SEC, night in, night out, especially with the way basketball is officiated in the college game right now, wears you down for March.
Yep.
I think we saw that a little bit with Florida getting beat last year. Florida had no business not competing for a national championship last year,
Right.
but they folded tent because you just get so banged up and worn down that you need some of those breather games.
Yeah.
And the parity in the SEC has not afforded anybody that
You're talking about
opportunity.
the 7 cupcake games that people are complaining about, but
Right.
Kyle and I aren't complaining about them because they're between tough games, so it's giving them a little break. But another thing we talked about was we got our starters, but we got a very capable and a very good backup. So we shouldn't see players. I'm thinking the starters only play about 30 minutes a game, average
if
over
that.
the season, which
Right.
will save their legs
I think you're
for
close.
the
Right.
SEC tournament and NCAAs.
But I also think it goes back to how you practice too. So I never would practice on Wednesdays until February. I
Mhm.
found out we had more gas in the tank in March if we didn't practice on Wednesdays during the season. Or on Fridays, we would go before school and then not practice on Saturday. So they had Friday afternoon and all day Saturday off.
Yeah,
Come back in on Sunday, start getting ready for the week. So,
it worked out pretty well.
I don't think you can run them in the ground practice wise once you get in the SEC schedule because I think there's only so many minutes in a day.
Mhm.
So I think you got to be careful because of the physical nature of the games you're playing in. So, and I don't know how they're doing it. I just know something doesn't seem right when they go on the road. Are they leaving a day too early or are they leaving a day too late?
Yeah.
Are they having shoot around at this time and they need it at this time? Have we asked the players what they need? But we've got ourselves now. You go back to the Missouri game at home. You go back to other games at home.
North
I
Carolina.
sat 3 rows. I was 3 rows behind the bench when they wore Vanderbilt out at home, but I was also like wondering if we were sleepwalking when we played at Vanderbilt.
Right.
Yeah,
You
God,
know,
that's
so
horrible.
there's something there from a routine perspective that I don't like about what they're doing the last 2 years on the road, and they
I
need to
agree.
get it figured out.
You got some info on this question?
Question from George: what's the reason Pope has not filled his last coaching spot? Is he still hoping Crawford is coming or can't find a replacement? We found out earlier today, and I said a week ago on this show that Jamal Crawford was coming. I had a lot of information, but also a good feeling that he was coming. We learned today that it appears that it's just about working out the details at this point. I think Jamal Crawford is a lock, and just found out before we went on that some insiders also believe that same thing. So, and we acknowledge that if that happens, that's just as big as getting your 15th man on the team. You know, getting an NBA, a former sixth man of the
For
year.
future, yeah, you're going to have 2 great NBA players.
Yeah.
And I keep reminding people, Pope played at Indiana for a few years, so these guys know about what it takes to get to the NBA.
Yeah.
And win and be all-stars.
Well, Joey, before we let you go, you have spent your career pouring into the young people at Franklin County, girls basketball, football, classroom, the hallways, now the principal's office. 538 wins as a basketball coach, 6 straight regional football championships. You were a part of some of those, a good majority of those, and now the top administrator at Franklin County High School. It's a remarkable body of work in a single community. What do you want the kids at Franklin County and their families to know about who their new principal is and what you stand for going into this school year?
That I'd sleep on the roof of this place for anybody that's in these walls.
Yeah.
It's different for every family. It's different for every kid. You know, it's like coaching players. I could talk to one player way differently than I could talk to another. So those pathways that we provide here for our kids and our families are going to be a little bit different because the needs are different. But at the same time, they've got somebody that believes in expectations and believes in accountability.
That's great.
And believes in having a good time while you're doing that. You know,
Sure.
I think you can have all three. I don't think if you have expectations and accountability that it doesn't mean that it can't be serious sometimes, you know, or fun sometimes too.
Well, Superintendent Mark Kopp, who has been a great superintendent for the Franklin County Schools, said you embody what it means to be a student-centered leader. Franklin County is obviously lucky to have you in the building. We're honored, Joey. I know that we're personal friends as well, and I know we joke a lot. And I sent you the thumbnail earlier and said the legend on it, and you said, "Oh my
Right.
goodness." But we are truly honored. We can't thank you enough for being here. You truly are a Hall of Famer in the state of Kentucky. You have a great sports mind, but also you're a great leader of young people, and it means a lot. So we really appreciate you being here.
And
I
stick
thank
around
you for having me.
just a little bit after.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. Don't go anywhere once we get off here because
Okay.
we'll talk a little bit to you. But that's going to do it for today for the special guest edition of Apex News Above the Noise. To our guest, Joey Thacker, principal-elect. I don't even know why we say that. You've been running this show for a while now at Franklin County High School. All the great accolades and accomplishments that you've had. Thank you for coming and giving us your time and your honesty tonight about Franklin
I had a
County.
good time.
And also the Commonwealth and UK. We're going to hold you to some of these predictions as well. You're part of the team now, so we'll put your scoreboard up there. You know how many got right. To everyone watching and listening, this is exactly the kind of conversation we built this show to have. Important people doing important work right here in Kentucky, talking about the things that matter in our community. If tonight's show gave you something to think about, please go ahead and hit that subscribe button. Make sure you give us a like and share it with someone who loves Kentucky sports and Kentucky people. We will be back with our regular news format tomorrow night at 5 p.m. And obviously, we're going to be watching Franklin County football and basketball and all these students, these good students that you have too, to see what they do in the fall very, very closely. Until next time, we want to make sure that you stay informed, stay sharp, and stay above the noise. Good night, everybody. Have a great Thursday evening.